We've talked on the YouTube channel about Prototype and this franchise, guys, that I absolutely love overall. And I know a lot of you out there also really have enjoyed the Prototype games. And I wanted to talk about the future of this franchise. We've talked about Prototype 3 in the past. You guys can check out all of that YouTube, content here on my channel. But I wanted to talk about, will we see and will there be a Prototype 3? And so I think we have to break it down by a couple of things. We got to look at the past, guys, that being Prototype 1, Prototype 2, to kind of decide whether or not we believe a Prototype 3 will come out. Because I can tell you, there have been petitions, there's been rumblings, talk, speculation that Activision was working on a Prototype 3 at one point or another. So let's talk about it. We can kind of, give our own speculation and thoughts, and I would love to hear yours in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So all this information, guys, I'm going to be giving you is coming to us from Wikipedia. And Prototype, guys, of course, is a title that came out back in 2009. And it was, of course, developed by Radical Entertainment, published by Activision, which, okay, there you have it. Radical Entertainment, in my opinion, did an incredible job with Prototype 1. I thought it was absolutely incredible. The concepts at the time, guys, it certainly was kind of like very transcendent, in my personal opinion, when it came to this style game. It kind of took what Infamous was, what they were doing with Infamous on the PlayStation, and, Prototype kind of took it to another level, and I loved it. I loved our main character, that being Alex Mercer. I thought it was a great character, very mysterious, kind of reminded me of, Altair from Assassin's Creed, and just all in all, guys, I loved this title, and I'll tell you, speaking of Assassin's Creed, I actually enjoyed Prototype more than Assassin's Creed, even though Assassin's Creed had more of a realism to it. But Prototype had this, it was almost like Assassin's Creed on steroids, and I absolutely love that concept. Well, really to look at, guys, whether or not a Prototype 3 will come out, there's two things that we always talk about here on the YouTube channel that kind of decipher if there's going to be a continuation of a franchise that's been, dormant, or the IP has been in a limbo state for quite some time. The two things are, number one, obviously, is sales, and number two is the reception around the game. So when we talk about the first game, guys, in this franchise, that being, of course, Prototype 1, we can see that the game received generally favorable reviews on all platforms according to the review aggregation website Metacritic. So Eurogamer gave it a 7 out of 10, pretty good. Game Informer, 7.25 out of 10, that's pretty good as well. Game Revolution C+, GameSpot, 8.5 out of 10. I mean, that's really good. GameZone gave it a 9.4 out of 10 on the PS3, 7.8 out of 10 on the Xbox 360. IGN, which is one of the biggest, of course, giving it between a 7.5 and 8.5 out of 10, depending on what console you played on. And, PC Gamer gave it 86%. So here's what I'll say. If we look at the reception of the first game, that being Prototype 1, got pretty good reviews, guys. Certainly favorable reviews. And I think that it's certainly, guaranteed ultimately that we were going to get a sequel to this title. Now we get to Prototype 2, which comes out a number of years later, comes out on the Microsoft Windows in 2012, and then comes out on PlayStation and Xbox, that being PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in 2015, but it released in 2012, guys, for the consoles as well as PC, that being Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and then Microsoft Windows. And this is another title, of course, developed by Radical Entertainment. Now, what I am personally going to say, and I've stated this many times, is that Prototype 2 was a significant downturn in my personal opinion. Why do I say that? I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy our protagonist, that being James Heller. I'm not going to say I didn't like him. I just didn't like him as much as Alex Mercer. I think that Alex Mercer's story was just getting started. I thought it was not the right time to move on from Alex Mercer. I think that they should have stuck with Alex Mercer and at least for a couple more games. Give him like, even like a trilogy, and then you can move on to someone like, James Heller, a new protagonist, but they didn't. They decided to stick with kind of move forward with James Heller instead of Alex Mercer, which I thought was the biggest mistake that Radical Entertainment made here. And I think it cost them this IP, this franchise as a whole. I believe, guys, that it was their decision to move on from Alex Mercer so quickly in this sequel was the downfall of Prototype as we know it. Now, that being said, once again, Prototype 2, what was the reception and how about the sales? So, Prototype 2, once again, received generally favorable reviews on all platforms except the Xbox 360 version, which received average reviews. So we look at that. Eurogamer 7 out of 10. That's not terrible. Game Informer 8.5 out of 10. Once again, pretty good. GameSpot 7.5 out of 10. That'll do it. IGN 7 out of 10. There you have it. PC Gamer gave it 60%, a little bit lower, of course, than the first game, but overall, guys, pretty similar to Prototype 1. And I got to say that, that's okay. I mean, those are good review scores. I would say, sure, this probably is, that's the first, really the second part of it, because the main part is sales. That's what it really comes down to. Well, guys, when we look at the sales, although Prototype 2 was the top seller for April 2012, beating the Kinect, Star Wars, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, its sales were considerably down from the sales of games released in April of 2011. Prototype 2 would continue its strong sales into the month of May, garnering more sales than the highly anticipated Dragon's Dogma, but failing to beat Max Payne 3 and fellow Activision Blizzard game Diablo 3. On June 28th, 2012, Activision announced that despite the substantial investment, the game did not find a broad commercial audience, and as a result, developer Radical would encounter layoffs and the studio would be reduced to a supporting role towards other Activision projects. So there you have it. Here's the key word, guys, or two key words: substantial investment. Activision basically went, I'm not going to say all in, because it was not an all-in scenario, but they put more resources into Prototype 2 than they did into Prototype 1. And the biggest downfall to me, guys, was the fact that they moved on from Alex Mercer so quickly. And you could say that it wasn't because of that. It was other things within, the Xbox 360 version. Lots of people had issues with the game on that. But no, guys. Prototype 2, I believed, would have been much more successful if you continued, Alex Mercer's story. Because all of us who played the first game, we were just starting to kind of warm up to Alex Mercer, and he was like this, character that I really liked from the very beginning, and there was a lot of mystery to him and such. And then you're moving on from him in the second game. It actually got me to not even want to buy the second game. To give you guys, some context here, after Gears of War 3 came out, which was the greatest Gears of War game ever made. We've had, a number of other titles since then, but I believe it was the greatest title ever made. The follow-up to Gears of War 3 was Gears of War Judgment, which to me was the worst of all the Gears of War games. And why was it the worst? Well, there's a number of reasons, but one of the most glaring ones was that they moved on from the main character in Gears of War 3, that being, of course, Marcus Phoenix. And they started, you play as Baird in Gears of War Judgment. They moved on almost. It felt like they were moving on from Marcus Phoenix and those guys. And Baird, which of course was a part of the other, games, it just didn't feel right. And that's a series, guys, of course, with Gears of War. They had 3 games building up to Gears of War 3. So they had 3 games there where you're playing as Marcus Phoenix before they moved on. And it still felt wrong. They gave Alex Mercer 1 game and they moved on. And look, I think that the biggest, reason why I didn't like Heller was because there wasn't so much mystery surrounding the character. Alex Mercer, he's like this hooded figure that you're playing as, kind of that mysterious type of person like Altair in Assassin's Creed. And I gotta say, guys, that I believe that the downfall was when Radical Entertainment made the decision to move on from Alex Mercer. Now, maybe it was Activision partially stated, like, maybe you should move on from Alex. I don't think that they would do that, but I feel like that was more of a creative decision from Radical Entertainment, and I believe that spelled the downfall. The other part of it, guys, is, look, this is a single-player story. They didn't create more outside of the single-player story. They didn't have no multiplayer, no co-op modes, so when you're putting all your eggs into just a single-player story, you can't move on from your main character that started this whole entire, IP to begin with, that being Alex Mercer. So, will there be a Prototype 3? Guys, I hope so, but it doesn't look too great. It looks pretty grim because Radical Entertainment no longer is even, working on Prototype. I don't think Activision's going to invest the money necessary to, of course, make a Prototype 3. Could they do a soft reboot with Alex Mercer or something of that nature? Absolutely, and I think they should not put as much investment into it. Maybe, create a story but add multiplayer and co-op and such, and I think that would really draw a lot of people in. And, just don't make it quite as heavy of an investment as they did with Prototype 2 for just a single-player story. Spread the wealth, spread the money around between multiplayer, campaign and co-op. But it doesn't look too good, guys. It doesn't look too good. If I had to, I'm not a betting man, but if I had to, say whether or not, if I had to bet on it, I would say we will not get a Prototype 3. However, it really comes down to the community. It comes down to us, guys, what we want. And we have to voice our opinion to Activision, stating that we want to see a continuation of this franchise moving forward. It's similar to other games that we talk about here on the YouTube channel, Dead Space, and a number of others, guys, that we want to see a continuation of. And could we? Absolutely. You can never say never. Will Activision sell the IP? Maybe they'll do that. Who knows? I would love to see them maybe sell it to someone else and someone else kind of takes the helm there. I think it's a title that definitely has possibility and potential. Nonetheless, I don't know if we're ever going to see a Prototype 3 though, guys. But it's up to us as a community to really rally around it and try to get Activision to make it if that's what we choose to do. And with that, I want to pass it on to all of you. Will there be a Prototype 3? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Prototype 3 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.